Welcome back to Jim's Jeeps. I'm sorry to say we're going to have to dig back into this engine. Cylinder number 1, the oil control ring is not controlling anymore. Thanks for joining us today. So everything was going real good. Cylinders 2 through 6. The rings are well on their way to being seated in there. No oil control issues, no leaking. You can see in the picture here the fouling of the number 1 cylinder plug, and it went to a no spark condition. It got so bad. So there's something going on with cylinder 1. I first thought it was the valve seals. I did just replace the valve seals on cylinder 1, just thinking that maybe there was too much oil seeping by the valve guides or across the seal, and that didn't do anything. It's pretty much the same exact problem, so I'm pretty certain now that the oil is not coming from the valve side. It is coming from the ring side, and more specifically the oil control ring in cylinder number 1. So, as I hate to do it, but gonna have to do it sooner rather than later so I don't lose my cat, so it doesn't get all fouled out there, I am going to do an in-frame piston removal on cylinder 1, and so we'll get started now. First step is to drain the fluid. I'll bring you back when we start getting the top end off. Alright, I thought I'd bring you back. I got the valve cover off, throttle body's off, a bunch of the other sensors, electrical connectors, fuel hoses, they're all off. The map sensor's off the back firewall, so I could get the valve cover off. Here's that gasket I talked about in previous video, and let's see if we can fish this out. I still have to clean up all these wires back here. So there's the valve cover gasket, totally reusable, super nice. It's some kind of molded plastic rubber over a metal frame. Anyway, the valve stems are obviously right here underneath these springs. You can see in there, there's a red, on the first intake and exhaust there's a red umbrella style valve stem, and the other ones have a kind of an orangish one. Those are from like 10 years ago when I rebuilt this engine. Same kind of style. There is no little spring around the valve stem on those that give positive control on the stem itself. The other cylinders are fine though, so they're working okay, doing what they're supposed to do, I guess. And certainly looks like the top of the engine is getting well oiled, and cylinder 1 is getting way too much oil. So we're gonna find out why that is. We're gonna have to take the head off. We're gonna have to take the intake and the exhaust manifold back off, which is not a fun job. It is what it is. And then we'll take the head bolts off, and you can reuse those. Certainly these only get torqued down to 85 foot-pounds. I don't believe they're torqued to yield bolts, and so you can reuse them. On the 4.0, I think those are torqued to yield bolts. I think those go a lot higher foot-pounds, but in any case, I'm going to reuse these bolts. They've only been used once anyway, so I think I'm okay there. Strangely enough, it's the exact same bolt set for the 4.0 engine, just in case you need to cross-reference something. Anyway, back in a few. Okay, so we got the head off, and you can see in cylinder 1 here we got a little puddle of oil, and the other pistons are pretty dry. I think there's some antifreeze that dripped into that one. So that's where we're at with that. And here's the head. You can see certainly in the first exhaust port there's a lot of oil burning going on. There's a lot of carbon in there. I mean, there should be some carbon, but I don't think that much. That seems to be quite a bit. And there's a better view of the seals and so forth. I don't think any of the seals are the issue. Yeah. Spark plug number 1 here, you can see it's pretty moist, and the cylinder itself is pretty moist with oil. The others look normal, you know, kind of a tannish, kind of grayish color, so forth. And you can see the intake valves too, or the exhaust rather, they're all kind of whitish, and 1 and 2 are not. Gasket's held up well. I'm gonna have to clean up this surface before I put the new gasket kit on, and see where we go. Alright guys, here's the piston I pulled out. The rings look fine. Definitely show some signs of being worn, you know, good wear, wearing in, that is. And the oil ring was fine. No issues. It was not doubled up on itself or anything like that they caution you about, because those little up and down valleys sometimes when you put it in, or you're trying to hammer it back in the bore, those things can kind of get screwed up. Those are all fine. So I think I might have an exercise in futility here, and let me tell you what I think's going on back over at the engine. Alright guys, second day here. I rehoned cylinder 1. You can see it's nice and clean, cross-hatched, and we're going to re-ring that guy and hope for the best at this point. Piston came out fine. Actually, the rings looked fine. Oil control ring was fine. No issue. I'm starting to think that it was excess suction from the PCV valve that was maybe drawing, creating pressure inside the crankcase, pushing oil up through the rings. You can see the other pistons, they're pretty black on top, maybe from oil burning as well. And so I'm thinking we had excess crankcase pressure pushing oil up from the bottom instead of controlling the oil from the piston wall sides back down. And that was created, I think, due to a stupid mistake on my part of a kinked breather hose. So, lesson learned. I don't think piston 1 actually had an issue, although it was certainly glazed, and we'll see where we go from here. Hopefully it'll be fine. I think it will be, and we'll report back. I'll show you when it's all closed up. That's probably going to be in the next video. I wanted to get a video out to give you guys a clue of what I'm working on. And as always, thanks for subscribing to Jim's Jeeps. If you haven't done so and you'd like to follow along, please click the subscribe button below, and we'll see you on the next video.